Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a software development instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to fix some rendering issues we've seen with our Hackerspace application. So the first thing is to demonstrate how we can actually observe the rendering of components on the Blazor site. It happens very quickly, so there can be some weird issues that happen that you don't notice when you're in testing mode. And then when your application is fielded, if you have delays in getting to your web API or other rendering issues, that take a little bit of time, you could see some weird artifacts that happen. In fact, we have one that happens with our current application, which is the double re-rendering of components on both the server and the client. And the reason for this is because of the way Blazor renders your page. It doesn't just render one time, it actually generally renders multiple times. So these are the rendering modes: server static, interactive server, interactive WebAssembly, and interactive auto. And so server static is basically just a static web page. This is actually very similar to just a regular server serving up a web page. It's just a piece of text that comes to your browser that gets interpreted as HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and just gets presented the normal way. In fact, a lot of your pages will probably just need to be server static, and interactivity is reserved for pages where you're actually working with data. So since we do work with a lot of data and we do a lot of forms over data type of applications, you're going to use this quite a bit, but not every page will be that way. Your about pages, maybe your home pages, maybe any page that's just providing information in text form will be static. So the server static can be sufficient for a lot of it, but then when you're working with data, you need some interactivity, and if you want to use interactivity with C#, then you need to use interactive server, WebAssembly, or auto. All of those have interactivity, as you can see with the check mark on the right where it says interactive. And the difference is where it occurs. With interactive server, the interaction happens on the server. You click on a button on your page and it sends over a SignalR connection information that happened to the server, and the server responds to that button click on the code on the server. With WebAssembly, a full-up WebAssembly application that was built using our C# goes to the client, and actually all the interactivity happens on the client. And then interactive auto starts off on the server, but then on subsequent visits, once the Blazor bundle is downloaded, it will actually run on the WebAssembly. So first it starts server, then it goes to WebAssembly. So one of the features that Blazor has by default is enabled is pre-rendering. With pre-rendering, what happens is that no matter what the interactivity mode, a server static page is sent from the server to the browser right away. And the reason for doing this is that it improves the load experience from the browser perspective. The browser gets something to show the user right away. This also helps with search engine optimization, since static pages are easier for search engines to work through and categorize. Interactive pages with a lot of code on them that are creating the content are not necessarily parsable by a search engine. So this has a couple benefits. You want pre-rendering generally enabled because you want that initial look, but it also creates the problem of double rendering. So the page, first a server static page comes into the browser, it renders, and then a new interactive page comes to the browser, and you kind of can get a screen flicker that happens as a result of that. So in order to see this and observe this double rendering, we're going to need to have access to a few things, and these are also useful for other reasons too. So first thing is the render info property that you have in your Blazor component. It provides you the name of the current interactivity mode, and then also a Boolean that tells you if it's interactive or not. And then there's an assigned render mode property. We can use these to figure out what interactivity we're in. Renderinfo.name will return either static, server, WebAssembly, or WebView. render info is interactive is just a Boolean, which indicates whether it's interactive or not. False means we have a server static page. And then assigned render mode exposes the actual object of the render mode itself. So depending on what kind of render mode is, you actually have these multiple renderings that can happen. So server static, we can see that we just have the one. If we have interactive server and pre-rendering is enabled, we get server static and then interactive server. If WebAssembly, we get server static, then interactive WebAssembly. And interactive auto, you get server static. And then really it's on, I believe it's on the second visit, once this is downloaded, you'll get server static and interactive WebAssembly. So note that we can be in any of mode in auto. So another feature that we can enable is stream rendering. Normally with a static server-side rendering, all components are rendered on the server and then sent to the client. So, these steps could be different things. They could be going to the database. They could be getting a subcomponent, integrating it in. All these little steps happen. And once everything's all together, you get the responsive browser. This is the default behavior. You can set an attribute for stream rendering by adding attribute stream rendering to your page or your Blazor component. And every step along the way, a response will be sent to the browser. So this will be streamed as it's being built. This can be helpful to get a faster response to the browser. And we're going to use it so that we can see the render modes a little bit more clearly. So the problem is that we currently have is our pages are completely re-rendered every time we switch render modes. And that means that, our components that are dependent on data can render, show some data, go out of scope, hide the data, then re-render, basically because it goes back to the default view with a null for your data object, and then re-render, causing the page to kind of get this little flicker effect. If it's happening really fast, the user may not see it. If things get slowed, you get that little flicker, and it doesn't look great, and it can create some uncertainty in some use cases. So there's a couple solutions. You can disable pre-rendering, and there's instructions on how to do that. Which you lose. So if you don't need search engine optimization, you might be tempted to do this. I think you always want search engine or generally unless it's a really internally facing page, you probably want search engine optimization. But the other thing is that this will, if it takes a long time to build your interactive page before it can be presented, you can get kind of a blank response before the user sees something. So disabling pre-rendering is probably not a great option. Even if you don't need SEO, you probably want something to be shown to the user right away. Persisting component state. There's a persistent state attribute you can put on objects and components you want to preserve as render mode changes. This kind of works, but it's kind of a new feature in .NET 10, but it's not fully implemented in many ways. And so if you go away from the page and come back, there's this feature called enhanced navigation that can actually kind of defeat the persistent state attribute. And so it works fine when you're going to the page for the first time, but then you go to another page on the site and come back. And since enhanced navigation doesn't drive a re-render state, the persistent state attribute is ignored and the page kind of flickers again. So I don't think this is quite ready yet. Maybe if they get that implemented, then we can take advantage of it. But for now, it's hit or miss whether this works well. You can use a scope service, and if you go down this rabbit hole and start searching for ways of dealing with this, you'll probably end up at a scope service. The thing is that fixes keeping data the same as you go away from one page to another, but it doesn't fix the actual initial problem, which is when you change render states. So you could use the scope service in conjunction with the persistent state to do it, but then you're going to find that you're putting a lot of stuff all over the site just to get some standard behavior. I'll probably pursue that and come up with an approach to do that. But on just using Blazor normally for most use cases, that's probably overkill at this point. So the issue is that both the persistent state attribute and the scope service approach don't completely solve the problem. You can combine them together and probably get something. But we're going to pick a simpler approach initially. We're going to wait till interactivity is established before getting initial data. And so in this case, what we're going to do is what will happen is the user won't see the data on the initial static rendering. They'll get a loading indicator, but they will see a response to navigation. And so users don't necessarily need to see the results of what they're doing, like clicking a button right away. They need to know that the system is responding to what they've done. So as long as that page shows up and it has a loading indicator, then the user knows, okay, it's getting the data. And then when it does have the data, it will show the user the data in one render. And I think that makes a smoother experience. So although they're going to see a loading indicator, the experience is sequential and it induces less anxiety than if you have stuff show up, then go away, then come back. When you have things go away and come back, the user thinks initially, oh, something messed up. And then it comes back and everything's okay. But for a short instant there, you create a little bit of anxiety in the user that something went wrong. We don't want to do that. We want our pages to kind of work sequentially and smoothly and give the user a good, comfortable experience. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set things up so that we can actually see the render states. So let's do this. Let's create a new branch. And we're going to start off in our pages, and start off with the badge edit page. And we're going to, right under the title here, we're going to display a render mode. And we're just going to add a string. And wherever we are, so I'm going to move this on parameters to the top. It really should be there anyway. And here we're getting render info. That's part of the component base method. If you wonder where those are, recognize that this whole page inherits from component base. Component base is a class that has this render info. And the name will give us the name of the render mode as we presented before. So that's going to display it. And we're going to do that for this page. And we're going to do it for the badges page, which lists all the badges. And we'll do the same sort of thing. We will put some UI to show the render mode in the page. And these are all just temporary things we're going to put in place just so that we can see what's happening. And then on initialize, we will set the render mode based on renderinfo.name. And then I'm also going to do this with the server component pages evaluators page. And I'm going to put some of this in. We'll get a render mode at the top. And we'll add a render mode variable, and let's see, on initialize at the top, and then on initialize we'll get that. So I'm going to run that just to see. We probably won't see a lot because the rendering happens very quickly, but we'll see at least the final result. So if I go my badges page, we can see there we are in render mode static, and then we're WebAssembly. And you can kind of see it there. Let's see if it happens again. Now in subsequent visits, notice it comes back to WebAssembly. Let's refresh the page. Yeah, when we refresh the page, then it goes from static to WebAssembly. So you can see the double rendering there. Let's see if we can see it go away. Yeah, you see it flash there. It goes away, then it comes back. And the evaluator is the same thing. It's taking a little while. Do I have a stop point in here? No. There we go. We're evaluators. Evaluators happens very quickly because it's on the server. It doesn't have to go through WebAssembly to get its information. It doesn't have to go through a web API to get its information. So that's probably happening. You just can't see it because it happens so fast. So what we're going to do then is continue on, and let's put some timers in places to make them. Well, actually, first off, let's do this. Let's put a stream rendering attribute on these pages. So we're going to go to our pages, and at the top, underneath the render mode, we're going to add stream rendering. So what stream rendering does is it makes it so that rather than wait when it's in static mode, rather than waiting for the whole page to be figured out before it sends it a piece at a time, so you can see the page basically kind of almost being developed as it goes. Stream rendering is really nice if you want a faster response on your static pages. So stream rendering is about static pages. And we're going to use that to see if we see more state with or more render states with this as it develops. We're going to be taking all those things away, or most of those things away. We might leave stream rendering at the end, but we're putting all this in initially just to see it happen. So there you can kind of see their server static. I think that helps see what's happening. You can kind of see it go static then to server now because of that render mode. Let's refresh and go to evaluators. Yeah, you can kind of see it kind of show static periodically. Okay, so another thing we can do to kind of make things more obvious is we can add delays in tasks. One place to put that is in on the server side. Go to your data access layers and find the data access layers that get the initial data. And in here, we're going to put, let's make it a 3-second delay. I think 5 is a bit long. So we'll do 3-second delays. We're going to put them, so if you say await task and 3000, that will wait for 3 seconds. So we'll put it in there. We'll put it in, oh, we don't want it in the constructor. We want to put it in the get all. And then in the evaluators list, it's on the DTO here, or when it gets the data transfer object with all the information. So we've got some delays here, and let's see what that does. And so we go to badges. Now now we can see that switch off, that flash actually happen much slower. There we can see now we can definitely see we're in static. Now we can see we're going to server, and then we can see it come back. So now you can see the full cycle. We're in static, loading badges indicator. We're in a WebAssembly and bring it. I think it's because we're in the second one that it does it that way. We're in static, loading. We saw it pop up. So let's see if we can make that show a little better on the second render. I think we're also going to put it in our pages. Let's put them on next to where we are getting the information. So in our onInitialized, we'll do that first. Maybe we'll put it here, and I'm going to close out these DLs so I can see the other pages. So we have some delays throughout the system, and let's see what that looks like. Go to badges. We're in static, loading badges. Badges show up. Then we go to WebAssembly, loading badges. So there's that double render. Let's see it here. We're in static. See the page. Then we go back. Then we're in server mode, and then we see the page. So we're really seeing the double render really well there. We see it kind of flash there. I think actually putting these maybe after, at the end, just to hold the state open on these onInitialized so we can see them. By the way, you would never do this intentionally on your fielded application because, well, it makes it really slow, which is what we're trying to do so we can see what's happening. This can be a useful troubleshooting technique also for you later on and other things. if you need to, just put a task delay in and see if that holds a problem open wide enough, long enough for you to kind of see what's going on. Okay, now the badges are staying pretty long. This is one where I want to see if I can keep the page, the information open. Yeah, it's still, I think it's because that task delay is running asynchronously, but it's good enough for what we need to do. We can kind of see that flash, which is what we want to see. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to work this problem. So why did we put all this timing and stuff in here? Well, when we're running in development mode, we have very fast response times because everything's on the same machine. When you deploy, though, things might run slower. So you want to see what it looks like if it runs slower. And again, so our issue is we want to get rid of that double flash. Now we talked about a number of different methods. If we could pass the information from one render mode to another, that would be ideal. But that also requires a lot of coding to get that to happen. So to keep it simple, we're just going to wait for rendering to happen. And one way we can do that is using a different method than onInitialized. So onInitialized and onParameterSet methods run in both server static and interactive render modes, which means that's what's the cause of our double re-rendering of the tables or the list views in our application. On the other hand, onAfterRenderAsync is a lifecycle method that runs only once the application or the component is in interactive mode. So we can use that to delay going to the database to get information until we are in an interactive mode. The other neat thing about onAfterRenderAsync is that it provides you a Boolean telling you whether it's the first render. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if it's the first render, and if it is, we'll go get the initial set of information. And after that, the page will then, if there's any changes, we'll have to it can't just rely on this to update it. It'll actually have to make explicit calls to update the data. But we already have that because whenever we make an add or update or change or delete, we explicitly call this method. So this is really the only time we want to get the information is after we're in an interactive mode, i.e. after the render, and then on the first render. Okay, so let's go to our evaluators page. We'll do it with this one first. And it's right now when it gets some data initially, let's see, where are we? We're right here. OnInitialized. We're going to handle the onAfterRender. And so we've moved this out of here. So we're no longer using onInitialized. Now I'm going to leave onInitialized here so they can get this render mode and this task delay just so we can see things. And I might throw a task delay here just so we have a chance to see what's going on. And so this will now check to see if it's the first render, and if it is, it'll do the update on render. Otherwise, it'll just wait. And note that we already have up here. Whenever you do this, you're going to want to double check. You're going to want to check to see if you have a null condition. So if something isn't loaded, you're going to have some kind of loading indicator. Right now we're just using this loading indicator. You could actually bring in a GIF with a spinner, and there's some CSS methods to show a spinner. So you can make this give them something to look at that's moving, but we're just using the loading indicator that's already there. So let's run that. And let's see what we have. So I'm going to go to the evaluation page, which I just modified. We're in render mode static. We see the loading indicator. We're going to wait. It pops up. And it only shows up one time. We don't get a double render. Badges, we still get that double render. Badge load, shows up, goes away, and comes back. Evaluators, we get the loading indicator. We're in static. We're in server. Notice it didn't render in static, and it only renders here. So that's the behavior we want. Yes, we're going to see a loading indicator, but we'll only get the rendering one time. So this is what we want. This is the nice smoother experience we want. The user will get, we don't get this unexpected deletion of our data. Okay, now let's see if we can do that with the badges page. And so we'll go to the list view for the badges, and we're going to do the same thing here. So here we are in uninitialized, and we're going to add an on after render, and we're not going to go here to get the data access layer. We're going to leave this to just see the rendering state, and we'll run that one. And we'll go to badges. Okay, we're in static mode. Let's see if it shows up. Nope, which is good. We go to WebAssembly, and then, so that's exactly what we want to have happen. Now, the other issue is, okay, here we are in edit. We're in static mode. It brings up the information. Then you see that it filled the edit form, went to WebAssembly, and then it shows the information. So we don't really want that behavior in the edit. So we're going to fix that one too. So let's go to the badge edit page. Now here we have an additional wrinkle, and this is the issue, is notice that, let's find where we load our information. Here we are. We have to use onParameters async. And we need to handle the onParameters because we have this parameter for the ID. But if we load here, we get that double load feature. So how do we handle that? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to move the code to the on render. So we are going to go to protected on after render async, just like we did on the other ones. And we're going to do a few things a little differently. First off, what we're going to add is we are going to add a field. I'm going to bring this down here, this stuff down here, so it's a little closer to our code temporarily. So maybe we can see more of it. Okay, so we're going to bring in a field badge ID, and we're going to initialize it to GUID-empty. And the way we're going to think about this is when this parameter gets, normally this badge is, we have a badge ID here, and then we're going to make, rather than a new one, we're going to have this start null. So null means that we don't have a badge yet. And GUID-empty means the badge ID here is going to be aligned with this. And that's going to allow us to check to see if the badge ID is different than badge, and that means we need to load a badge. And so what we're going to do is in here, we're going to make the onParameter set just do onParameter stuff. And we're going to move this code here to, we're going to move the call to on after render. And we'll put this just so that we can see the render mode. These are going to go away. And we're going to check, and we're going to say, hey, if the badge, and then this question mark is a nullable check, ID does not equal badge ID. I like that the IntelliSense can't figure out where we're going with this, or Copilot can't figure out where we're going with this. That kind of tells you it's not there, that this kind of takes some thinking to do. Then if it's different, that means, hey, we don't have the badge yet. We have an ID, but we don't have a badge. So it starts off as GUID-empty, and then we do this null check. So if it's null, this will fail, and we won't do a badge load. So while this, do a check. Let's see, do we have this right? And then what we're going to do is in the onParameter set, which I'm going to put above because it happens first generally. We're going to check to see, hey, when this gets called, we're in interactive render mode. So we're going to set the badge ID is, if the ID field we get through the parameter is null, that means that we're making a new badge. So then we're going to make the GUID be empty. Otherwise, the badge ID will parse this and get the ID field. Then in on after render, what will happen is you'll see, hey, we have a badge ID. And so in that case, actually what's going to happen here is if the badge is null, this will be null, and it'll detect that null is not equal to this badge. So that will then drive a load. If we do have a badge ID, and so the fact that the badge is null will always drive an initial load. If we come back to this page and we're coming back to a different ID, this will look at the ID and see if they're different. If they're different, that will drive a badge load. If they're the same, it won't drive an extra load. It'll just, so we're only going to go ping the API if the badge ID changes. So this page could be going to and from and back and forth. So this ensures that we only go after a new badge if the badge ID changes. So go to our badges. And we go to our edit. We're in static mode. It goes to WebAssembly, which is what we wanted. And then, okay, it looks like it got hung up. Oh, I think we oops. I think we need to do a state has changed call here. And so I think it's getting it. It wasn't updating the page. So we kind of have to do this because normally the render drives the update of the information since it's on. So since it doesn't know that a change has occurred, we have to notify it with state has changed. Let's try that again. We're in static, we're in WebAssembly, and then we get the badge rendered. So that's kind of what we wanted. Now this looks all really slow. We've intentionally slowed this down. We're going to remove all that later and it'll run fast, but we want to see. And then let's create a new badge. We're in static. We want to see it to go to WebAssembly without loading. Yes. And then we get our new badge. Oh, I think I said evaluator 5 and I forgot to hit add evaluator. Eventually, I think I'd like to replace this with the checkbox selection. I think it's a little bit more intuitive. Yep, and we have the evaluator there. Okay, so this appears to be working, and that's how we can clean up some of those, make those render modes behave. I'm going to move DAL requests to on after render. We'll commit those, and then I'm going to go through. I'm going to clean up all of these render mode things I put in to test it. So we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. Let's see, where's the render mode? Take that one out. Add evaluator. Get rid of this. So now this shows us a lot better. You can see there's the only thing the on-parameter set is doing is just setting the badge ID, and then on after render is using that to update it. And we're kind of using this really as a signal that, hey, things have changed. And then in this one, we're going to do the same sort of thing. Get rid of that render mode. Here, get rid of that string there. Get rid of that. If we get rid of the task delay, well, we kind of don't need the on initialized anymore. So that simplifies that. You can see really all you're doing is moving, you're checking for first render and only getting the data one time. And here, the list view has its own one, but I think I want to leave that. This whole thing goes away. And then we need to also take them out of the data access layers. And we'll run it without all the delays and everything in there. We still have streaming enabled. We could probably take those out too. You can see the secondary loads are much faster. Initial load is pretty quick. Let's recycle this. That API call, notice that the API call makes it, and also getting into WebAssembly is slower on the first load. Once the part of that delay there is actually it's loading WebAssembly in the background. So that's kind of the trade-off that we have here by doing it this way. Is this loading badge, it's not the loading so much as getting the WebAssembly application loaded. And that's why it's faster on the second one. You could kind of almost see the loading indicator. This one, not so much. That one, you kind of quickly see it. So you can see when running full speed, it's actually pretty fast. You could kind of see a little bit of a loading indicator very quickly. So it's pretty fast. And so, but now we're not getting that initial flicker, and you wouldn't really see it unless you actually slowed everything down to see it. So this is kind of a refinement, but it's an important one because you will have servers and things when you get congestion slow down, and you want that to move smoothly. So as a general rule, unless you are specifically designing your page to load and pass information from the static load to the server load, you really want to do your data calls in the on after render method then instead of in the on initialize. If you're hitting the on initialize, you need to address static pre-rendering. You either need to turn off pre-rendering, or you need to put some code in place to cache things and move them back and forth. The simplest method is just in general, do all your data calls from the on after render occurs. And if you have a situation where, hey, we're tying up or connecting up a ID field, then in your on parameter set, let's see, batch edits, that's the data access layer. In your on parameter set, set a field with the parameter. You can do this. The way I did this is I just set the GUID, or have the badge start off as null and then it loads it. You can also look at doing things with first render Boolean, or maybe even setting an on-parameter set a Boolean in here that signals that a load is needed. So there's a couple different ways of approaching this. So this takes a little bit of thought sometimes. This pattern probably is going to work for most of what you're doing, but you do need to think about it. Okay, well, that concludes this. I'm going to close all of these out and merge my changes and merge those into Dev. Thank you very much.